Today's guest is Tyler Walker, owner of Choctaw Bee Company, a man who left a stable federal career to build a thriving beekeeping business from the ground up. Managing 2,000 hives, he plays a critical role in pollinating crops nationwide while battling industry challenges like labor shortages, foreign honey fraud, and hive losses. Today, we dive into the world of commercial beekeeping, the struggles behind the industry, and how his faith fuels his journey. Tyler, welcome to the show.
Appreciate you guys having me on.
Absolutely. Been wanting to have you on and finally got an opportunity to make it happen.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Yeah, glad you could be a part.
Thank you.
Well, let's start at the beginning. What was life like growing up for you, small town?
So growing up, right here in little old Bethlehem, I guess you'd say, everybody. I grew up always having pretty much a passion for agriculture growing up, and going to Bethlehem was always involved with FFA and playing sports and things like that. So it's nice growing up in a community where everybody knows everybody. Agriculture is important here. People around here respect the industry and kind of respect knowing where their food's grown, things like that. So it's nice growing up in pretty much small town USA.
So did you grow up farming or in agriculture, or did that come later in life?
So I would say I grew up around agriculture. So starting, even before I started school, like the people that babysat me, they had like a small roadside vegetable stand. So growing up there, I was always around planting, very large gardens, fruit trees, things like that, and always interested in it, even at that age. And then, starting school, I had friends who their family farmed, and during the summers, I would work watermelon fields with them to be around it, and started kind of saving my money from working in the watermelon fields at a young age, and saved up money to buy my first cow, and then sell that and bought more, and then we didn't have a lot of land, so we developed a small herd, and I grew that up until pretty much I finished my AA degree in college. And then when I moved off to get my bachelor's, I sold those cows. But it's always been something I've been around, but didn't really have a direct end to starting my own business. So,
Where'd you end up going to college at?
so I went to University of Florida. Did got my bachelor's in agricultural, food and resource economics with concentration in agribusiness marketing and management. So when I started at Chipola, I thought maybe about being an extension agent and such, and the degree I was going to get to go that route, I learned real quick I wasn't too good at chemistry. So I think first or second semester at Chipola, I had to change my major to something more business related. I was doing good in my business and accounting classes, and chemistry was not my strong suit, so I changed that route, and that's how I ended up doing food and resource economics.
So was there something specific that led you to University of Florida, or was that just where you had?
I would say cost of tuition. I would have liked to go on to, Auburn or UGA or something like that, maybe so, than University of Florida. Didn't grow up a Gator fan anyways, but it was at the time, in-state for me, so it was the cheapest route, with scholarships and everything. So I was able to go there and not have to take out a ton of money on student loans, so it was the cheapest cost of tuition.
Yeah. Out-of-state tuition will double in cost.
Yeah, it's crazy how much it cost. We live right here on the Alabama line, and, Auburn's not that much farther, and it seems like their agribusiness school's got a pretty good thing going on. Also, ABAC over in Georgia,
Yeah.
That's a really nice small agricultural college. It would have been nice to go to a place like that, but I enjoyed my time at UF. It was a good school, and got what I needed to get done to get my degree, and got to meet some folks, and led me to getting a job out of college.
So what was that first job out of college?
So, first job out of college was technically an internship. So I had a 6-month internship down in Plant City, Florida, working with a agrochemical sales company, selling like fertilizer, crop protection products, things like that. And while I was there, I had applied for a job back home with the USDA, but I never heard anything about it. And a couple months into that job, I get a phone call from a guy with USDA, and he's, "Hey, I got a job here, and I was going through a stack of resumes from career fair and wanted to see if something you were interested in." I was like, "Okay." So he tells me what the job is. I was like, "Yeah." It's like, "I applied for that job." He's like, "Well, long story short, because of you being young and not having any industry experience and the way the government ranks resumes, basically you didn't make the list. But here's a way for you to potentially get the job if you're still interested." So at the time, the government had a Pathways career program. So he's like, if you fly to Iowa and apply, you got to go to this booth at Iowa State University, and the only way you can apply under this program is to show up there and apply in person. So he's like, you and another guy from Gainesville, y'all are both going to go and apply if this is something you're interested in. So he put us in contact, and we rode up there or flew up there, and then rented a car and shared a car to go to Iowa State University and went and applied. And then we had to wait a couple months, and then someone that was given more preference points by the way the government ranks applications ended up applying too. So that person got to apply for the Gainesville position and the Bonifay position, and luckily he picked Gainesville. So that means I got the job in Bonifay, and the other guy didn't get a job. Unfortunate for him, but I ended up getting lucky and getting that job. So that was the first real job out of college. So me and the wife, we were married. We were able to move back home, pretty much right out of college, and go to work in my hometown here in Bonifay.
So what was that job with USDA?
So it was a loan analyst position for USDA Farm Service Agency. So USDA Farm Service Agency, they make subsidized loans to new and beginning farmers and farmers who are unable to obtain commercial credit for different reasons. We make subsidized loans to those farmers to be able to operate.
Looking back at your early back in college and stuff like that, or even in high school, were there any signs of you becoming an entrepreneur one day?
I mean, I started a small little, cattle operation, but I mean, I wouldn't really even call it a business because, you raise cows and they have a calf and you take them to the sale and you sell them. I mean, there's no really marketing in that. You really don't have a customer base, but I was always interested in business, but I didn't really foresee myself starting any type of, true agricultural business. I figured I'd work for an operation or something like that. And it wasn't really until, I kind of dabbled in the bees and I was like, hey, this could be something that's a legitimate business.
At your job at the USDA, what did a typical day look like in that job?
So, deal with a lot of customers. So, we covered, I want to say 14 counties maybe. And within those counties, I think we had like 200 to 300 borrowers. We had anywhere from 2 to 5 employees throughout the years I was there. At one point, there was just me and another lady. And that was through basically time of Hurricane Michael, one of the worst hurricanes to ever hit the state of Florida, if not the worst. We would answer customer calls. So customers who were either needed new loans, had questions about the existing loans they had. We had to deal with customers who, weren't able to make their payments. So, we basically handle collections as well. We handle people who are calling wanting to inquire about new loans, going over kind of how we work as a lender and what we're there for, what we can and can't do. So it was a lot of customer interaction, doing paperwork for the government. I mean, you can just imagine how many forms are on an application. So, once you're done dealing with the customers, then you have all those forms you have to process and making sure that you're staying within the regulations as far as, abiding by those customers, doing right by them, handling their applications timely and things like that. So I would say early on, the majority of my time spent on a day-to-day basis was doing just talking to customers, dealing with customers. And then later on, got into doing like actual field visits, following up with customers that we've done loans to, going out, checking, see what they've done with their loan funds, things such as that.
Did those people you met while working in that career help you now as a business owner?
I think being exposed to, just hundreds of different operations in a geographical area, even though they're not, beekeepers really
Yeah.
that I was dealing with, you get to see kind of how, you may have 5 customers that all have cattle, but all 5 operations make money completely differently.
Yeah.
They all have their different little niches.
Yep.
They all have their different management styles. They all have their production styles as well. Just seeing how everything is not a cookie cutter template for business.
Yeah.
You can be successful different ways. And through those different ways, you can set yourself up to be more successful in the end. And you can differentiate yourself from other people in business. So I'd say that aspect of it was really eye-opening, how you can be so different than someone else doing the same thing as you. And, at the end of the day, you can both be successful.
Yeah.
But everyone has their own little take and spin on what they do as a business.
So how long were you with USDA before you opened up Choctaw Bee Company?
So I started Choctaw Bee Company almost 2 years after I started with the agency.
So you were still working with them while you had the bee company too?
Yeah, so I started with them in 2016. In 2018 is when I bought my first beehives and really started dabbling in the bees. At that point, I had no idea this was going to be a business or lead me into being a larger operation.
Was there a moment when you realized you wanted to leave the government work to go full-time into the bee industry?
Yeah. So I started in 2018 with just a few, and then, a few months later, I was able to grow what was even started with then. And I was like, hey, this is pretty cool, and I like what I'm doing. And if things go like I think they'll go over the next year or two, it's possible for this to be a legitimate business. And at the time, I didn't know if it was going to be, just a kind of a side hustle or whatever. But getting probably, I would say 2020 is probably when I decided that, like, hey, something's got to give. At that point, I was in it, about 2 years at that point. And I had my first kid on the way. My wife was pregnant. And at this point, like, I was really hustling like every spare minute I had. And at that point, I knew that it was not going to be sustainable for me the rest of my life to have bees, have a family, be involved in my community, and work a full-time job as well. So at that point, I was pretty much like, hey, I got to get serious about this and start aligning myself to be able to walk away from this job if that's what I want to do. So, the wife and I talked about it, and if it was up to her, I'd have just quit my job then because she was ready for me to be home more. But we we talked about it and, kind of put together a little game plan for how much longer I would stay working there. And that's what we started working toward then.
So what was the hardest part about leaving a stable job and starting something that's really uncertain?
I would say just the security of my family. As far as whether I failed or had success, that didn't bother me as much as knowing, like, if I fail, like, how am I going to feed my family?
Mm-hmm.
At that point, when I did finally leave my job, I had 2 kids and a wife, 2 very small kids. Daycare's not cheap, diapers, formula. I mean, it's expensive. But at that point, I felt like that's where I was supposed to be, and just how everything worked out from, basically growing up to that point, that's where I was supposed to be in life. Because had doors open and doors close, and you sit there and you wonder, like, why did that door close? That's where I wanted to be.
Yeah.
And it didn't work out. And then, everything just started working out with the bees and aligning for, me to go into business for myself. And it's like, at this point, if I fail, I still have the rest of my life to go to work for somebody else. I've got a degree. I've got industry experience. I'll have experience working for myself. I feel like I could land on my feet easily.
Yeah.
So at that point, I'm like, I just gotta take the plunge, and I've got to try it. If I fail, it may be hard on us as a family for a little bit, but I feel like I can still, bounce back and land a job somewhere else.
Did you ever second guess your decision to leave? And if so, what kept you moving forward and continuing on with it?
Yeah, your mind's funny. It plays games with you. I mean, like, up to the second of me turning in my, 2 weeks notice, it's like, am I supposed to be doing this? Is this real? Like, can I take it back? And just all those thoughts start going through your mind, and it ended up working out. And I wouldn't say I truly second guessed myself, but those thoughts were, like, always there. Like, was I supposed to do this? Is this smart?
Yeah.
Because I don't think it was ever like, this is a smart thing to do. This is what you need to do. Like, so many things you tell yourself, like, this is a stable job, close to home, federal benefits. Like, it's a hard job to leave. But at the end of the day, I'm glad I made it.
Yeah. Risk versus reward.
Right. Yeah.
How did your family react when you told them that you were leaving the federal job to push through with the bee business?
Yeah. I would say they were good with it. I mean, having a supportive family for anybody that starts their own business, that's really important. And I've always had a good, supportive family. On my side, my wife's always been supportive. Her family's always been supportive of us, and going through building a business phase from ground up. Even starting out with kids, there's going to be times where you need help, and they've always been willing to lend a helping hand and stuff. But, I remember when I was first starting out with bees, I tell my dad I'm getting bees, and he's like, okay. And then I'm like, Dad, I need help. And he's always willing to help me no matter what I'm doing. He's been a little hesitant with the bees at times. He's pretty much made it clear he doesn't want to do anything with the actual bees, but anything outside of bees that he can help me with, he's always been willing to help and everything. So they've been really supportive of it, and they pretty much knew before I quit my job that was the goal. So they knew before I told them, like, hey, I'm quitting my job, next month. They already knew that was coming.
Yeah.
So beekeeping's not the most common career path. What made you choose bees opposed to some other type of farming?
So in 2018, my brother-in-law and father-in-law, they wanted to start peddling with bees. And, I knew I was going to have to hear them talk about it all the time. I was going to get roped into helping them and stuff. So I was like, all right, well, I'll get a few hives and just piddle with it. So I ended up getting a few hives and didn't know what I was doing. I mean, I remember just watching YouTube for hours upon hours, like different people that had bees and trying to. I honestly didn't even know the difference in like capped brood and capped honey, and just it's unreal how them getting interested in it sparked my interest in it, and then led me to being in business for myself.
Yeah. Was there anything, or is there anything that people misunderstand about the bee industry or working with them?
Yeah, I think people associate honeybees with honey. And honey is a very important aspect of beekeeping. But I would say in present day beekeeping, like on a large scale, like, uh, 80% of operations that own the majority of the bees in the country, honey may not be their largest part of their income. It may just be a different revenue stream for them, but honey is not what keeps people in business these days. People think that if you have bees, that honey's like your only source of income, but it's really diverse the ways you can make income with bees. So people have no idea that you can commercially pollinate crops. You can sell bees. You can sell queen bees. I mean, there's some operations in the United States that's all they do is raise mated queens, which is a mated queen bee. And they provide large operations across the country with basically their stock.
So what is each, I know you mentioned the queen bee, what are the uses of each different type of bee?
So inside a beehive, you typically only have one queen, and she's going to be mated. And think of it as that's her castle. That's her home. She rules what goes on inside that house. And then she lays eggs, which turn into brood. So when I refer to brood, think of it as, like an egg that a chicken lays. Each egg is going to turn into another bee. Those bees are called worker bees. Those are also females, but they're not females that have been fertilized by a male. So the eggs that they lay or could lay are infertile. But they know that it's the queen's job to lay eggs, so the worker bees play other roles inside the hive. And then there's what they call a drone bee. A drone bee is a male. There's, let's say, one queen per hive. There's going to be anywhere from 30 to 60,000 worker bees, and then maybe 5,000 drone bees, depending on time of the year. Could be more,
hive?
could be less. Yes.
Wow.
So just kind of in perspective of what the colony's made up of, it's mainly worker bees, one queen, and then a few drones. And the worker bees play different roles throughout the colony. So they have different roles as far as like feeding the queen. So they actually feed her, tend to her. There's bees that walk around and basically guard her. And then there's bees that'll guard the entrance of the colony. There's bees that clean up the cells, the beeswax inside the colony. And there's bees that actually bring the honey in and start converting it into honey inside the colony. They all have different roles to play, and
It seems like
they're very serious about it.
Yeah.
They don't stop. They never stop working.
So it seems like they're known for being highly organized. Has learning about that and how they live changed how, I guess, you do things in life or anything?
I mean, they're always working, and it seems like they're always working me. That's about the only thing I've gotten out of it. Some people, refer to people that have bees as beekeepers. Well, sometimes I feel like the bees keep me because I'm not really keeping them, because I'm always having to do what basically they're telling me they're doing, and then I have to react to that. So that's the only thing I got out of it.
So you started with a few hives. How do you go from a few hives in your backyard to like a full scale operation?
So I learned how to split bees. And when I say split bees, to make more beehives, basically you rob some worker bees from a colony and you take it, you move it off site somewhere else. And then if you can get those worker bees a new queen, you can start a new colony. So, day one, I mean, that's what I started working on was building more colonies. So it's just compounding from there. You know, you take 12, you grow them to 40, then you take 40 and you grow them to 80, and of course you have losses and such throughout the way, but you just learn to propagate off of what you have and learn the fundamentals of raising bees and making more bees. And that was my primary focus from the start. You know, I didn't really have any desire to, make a bunch of honey that first year or anything. I was just trying to, for one, figure out bees and try and figure out what this cycle was like to make more. So through trial and error, it was not all successful that first year, but basically learned the basics of splitting bees and making more bees. And I started from there growing, and then, bought some bees throughout the way. That helped me grow my numbers. But pretty much just taking the bees you have and being consistent and persistent about growing them. I mean, sky's the limit.
What causes the losses like you were talking about with bees?
Right now, that is the $1 million question. So just in the past month, commercial pollination's going on in California. It's the largest pollination event in the world. So California grows roughly 1.5 million acres of almonds, and they require anywhere from 1.5 to 2 hives per acre to pollinate it. Well, there's only 2.5 to 3 million beehives in the United States. So basically, all the commercially raised beehives in the United States have to go to California to pollinate almonds. Well, this year, through the past, I would say at this point, month and a half, since January 1, we've had probably what's going to go down as like the largest loss in bees in the United States, maybe since 2006, 2007, maybe even larger than that one. And right now, there's a lot of people within the industry that are basically calling anyone and everyone, scientists, researchers, to try and figure out what's going on. A lot of the losses, come from basically exposure to pests, and those pests are varroa mites. Some of it is linked to pesticides, things that are sprayed on crops. And some of it's pathogens. Pathogens as far as like, viruses and,
Yeah.
and things go. So the varroa mite, I think we contracted it in the 90s. It's a mite that come over from China. Basically, it leaches onto the bee and it feeds on basically the good fats on the bee. So it would be like if we had like a beach ball attached to our body and it was leaching fluids off of us. Basically, it weakens us down. Well, those bite marks on it is basically an open wound. So then the bees just swap viruses. We get a lot of viruses from that. So they get weakened by the mite, and then they get viruses, and then basically they die. That's what I would say a lot of the losses are to, but also the pathogens and such. I mean, there's a lot of bees that's been lost this year that have not had a lot of mites on them, and we've had reasons that for what we can't understand that they've collapsed and just died. I mean, it's unreal, and it's really the $1 million question in beekeeping right now as far as what's going on, and it's also coming at a really bad time where beekeepers are faced with economic constraints in the industry.
What's been one of the most unexpected challenges of running a bee business through those times?
I would say labor. Like, I had no idea how much labor this took when I first started. I mean, and it's like a hamster on the wheel. Like, once you get on the wheel, it's hard to get off. Like, the bees are constantly working you instead of you're working the bees.
Yeah.
And it's trying to stay on top of them and stay caught up with them. And there's not many like mechanical shortcuts in our industry. It's very old fashioned as far as like how you work a beehive and how commercially raising bees is. Like, people may see me with a bobcat skid steer and like, oh, well, you got a machine do all that. No, trust me, the hard work has already been done by the time I get to use that machine. Like, I use that machine to move them around.
Just pick them up.
Yeah, but there's a ton of sweat and manual labor that goes into working these beehives. And, things like the mites. I mean, the mites have caused so much extra labor on top of just managing the bees like they're supposed to. So now it's gotten to where you have to treat for mites, anywhere from 2 to 4 times a year. And those 2 to 4 treatments are sometimes not single use applications. So one treatment may be 3 weeks that you have to treat at 3 different times. So that requires a ton of labor just to work it. And then, as far as like producing honey and extracting the honey, there's a ton of hands-on labor that goes into that.
What do the mite treatments look like that you were talking about?
So there's a lot of different treatments on the market. Some of them are highly effective. Some of them are not very effective at all. And some of them, the mites are becoming resistant to the chemicals that are on the market.
Adapted to it? Yeah,
the mites have gotten so used to it that basically it doesn't touch them, doesn't kill them. So some of them come in like forms of strips. So inside a beehive, you have like either 8 or 10 frames, and that's what the bees are actually on. Some of them are strips that hang down between the frames. Some of them are like pads that go, think of like a meat pad that's, up under like hamburger meat or something. Some of them are like pads that go on a colony, and they release a gas, and the gas kills the mites. Some of the treatments are with these guns that produce a vapor by putting like oxalic acid in. It's wood bleach. You put that in, and the vaporizer will turn that oxalic acid into a vapor, and that vapor penetrates the mites in the hive and kills it. And some of it's like a gel that the bees, it has an active ingredient in it, and the bees come in contact with the gel, and then they basically transfer that gel throughout the hive by just walking around, and when the mites come in contact, they die that way. So there's a lot of different stuff on the market, a lot of different forms of application, but unfortunately, there's not a lot that are highly effective for many different times of the year. So, where we're at, located in the south, it's very hot a large part of the year, and a lot of these treatments don't work when it's hot. So it only leaves us with a few treatments that work, 8-9 months out of the year.
Mm-hmm. Do other countries have a lot of bees, or what does theirs look like? And does that foreign aspect have a factor in America's bees?
Yeah. There are countries with honeybees as well. Basically, there's 2 types of honeybees. And I'll start by saying this. So the United States originally did not have honeybees. The honeybees we have now are from Europe. So basically, there's a strand of bees that's from Europe. Then there's a strand of bees that's from Asia. So the bees that we have in the United States are all of European descent. So within those bees, Europe has them and we have them. We do not transport bees from country to country really anymore. So for a long time, even Canada had an open border as far as bees go. So you could actually sell bees to Canada from the United States. Well, when we got the varroa mite, they shut that down. They said, we don't want varroa mite. We don't want your bees anymore because they have these pests and diseases. So they shut that down. So now you have Canada that has their own bees, United States, South America has their own bees. Europe, Asia, they have their own bees. Australia, they have them. There's really not a lot of movement as far as honeybees goes, but there's movement as far as honey goes, and that impacts the United States. Also, uh, almonds is a large player as far as success in beekeeping in the United States goes, because they have so many acres of almonds in California. They play a large role in supporting the United States beekeeping industry because the amount of dollars that just pollination in California alone contributes to the beekeeping industry. So California pretty much has a monopoly on the almond market for the world, the whole world. So in the past, I would say 10 years, you've had Australia come to the market, and I think some acreage in either Israel or Egypt, where they've started producing their own almonds as well. So the United States still has a large monopoly on it, but they are starting to get competition from those other two markets. So, and then the honey, America doesn't produce all the honey that we consume. So people have to import honey into the United States. So bees outside of the United States are producing honey, and they're selling the honey here in the United States. That plays a factor into beekeeping and what our prices are that we receive for our honey and such.
So the majority of the honey that's in stores, is it from America or is it from other countries?
If you go to these big brand stores, I won't call them by name, but I'll just say big brand stores. Price rules. So they're driving for lowest price on the shelf. You'll see that the majority of the honey that's moved on their grocery store shelf is not predominantly U.S. honey. It may say U.S. grade A honey on the label, but unfortunately that does not mean it's American honey. That just means it meets the USDA's requirement to label it U.S. grade A. And if you look on the back, it'll say, product of Brazil, India, who knows where. And then at the end, it may say United States. I mean, it could be 5% U.S. honey. It could be 50% U.S. honey. But it's cut with foreign honey that really is sold here for pennies on the dollar.
What does the process look like of how that honey gets on the shelf? Say like local grocery stores.
If you went to a local grocery store, I would say you would find mainly mom and pop honey packers that are selling to that grocery store. And there may only be one or two labels on the shelf that are not U.S. honey on even your local grocery store shelves. So it gets there by people who are what beekeepers would call honey packers. They're a lot of times not beekeepers. They just have a facility where they bottle honey. They put their label on it. They meet the requirements for their state to sell honey on the grocery store shelf, and they form relationships with those grocery stores. So they will buy honey from beekeepers, typically within their area, 50, 100, 200-mile radius. They'll buy 55-gallon drums of honey. They'll take it. They'll make sure they strain off like any, bee parts or wax or anything like that. And then they'll bottle it, put it in their package, put their label on it, and sell it to the grocery store.
So when you first started with bees, did you go straight to selling honey, or how long was it until you started selling honey?
So the first year I had bees, I made splits, made new beehives and moved them. And I really didn't know how, our area was, like when the time to make honey was and what I could expect to make and things like that. So yeah, I made these splits and I moved them. And when you make a split, you don't come back and you check it for anywhere from 14 to 30 days. So I go back to check them, and the hive is just like slam full of honey. Like there's no room for the queen to lay eggs anywhere. Like it's just frames of honey everywhere. It's like, wow, I got to do something with this. So I take the honey out and I end up extracting it. And I was like, well, I got honey now, so I got to sell it. So I got the wife to, she's really good with graphic design. So she put together a label and had some labels ordered some bottles, and that was selling honey. So the first year or two, I think everything I made, like I just sold word of mouth to friends and family and give it out to people for yard rent. So when I get bee yards, I don't pay people. I just give them honey in exchange for letting me put bees on their property. So the first year or two, that's how I sold honey. And then after that, I started producing honey large enough to where it was in 55-gallon drums, and I needed to sell it because it was more than I could sell, and more than I had time to sell locally. So then, just call around and figure out like who the buyers are and what they pay and things like that, and then I was selling honey.
Do you have to haul that honey, or how is that transported once you put it in the drums?
So sometimes I deliver it to them. Sometimes they come and get it, depending on how much I'm selling. Sometimes they'll send a semi truck to my place to get the drums. It all just depends on who I'm selling to, how local they are, and where they want the honey at.
What does a typical sale look like on, I guess, number of barrels?
So as far as like selling a semi load, I would say that's like 50 to 60 drums typically. I've not sold any full semi loads. I've sold to a couple folks that have sent like a semi to my place, but they picked up honey from several other beekeepers. So when they got there was other honey already in there, and I just throw mine on there too. I try and sell it as local as I can. People that send semis are typically honey packers that are very large. I would prefer to sell it to people locally. Yeah. And most of those folks, I'll either put it on my flatbed and deliver it to them, or they will come and buy, anywhere from 1 to 6, 8, 10 drums at a time, and I'll load them up. Sometimes they'll speak for the whole crop, but then they'll come and get it like a few drums at a time. As they need it and as they can bottle it, they'll come and get it from me. So, like right now, I've still got like 30, 40 drums from last year, but it's just because people that have spoken for it have been getting it pretty slowly.
What does the process of transporting bees look like when they're going out to like California and those places?
So transporting bees is, I would say, one of the most like fascinating parts of the beekeeping industry. So to ship bees to California, we keep bees on what we call 4-way pallets. So each pallet of bees has 4 beehives on it. So we try and maximize fitting as many beehives as we can on a truck without being overweight, but also utilizing the full length of that semi-trailer. So we put them on flatbed semis. We try and get, like, we shipped out a couple weeks ago, shipped 2 semi-loads to California. Each semi-load had 480 hives on it. Depending on what configuration you run as far as like size of your beehives, 480 is like the most we can typically fit without it being too many bees to fit on the truck or being overweight. So you also had to try and stay under 80,000 pounds when you ship bees out. So we take them, we load them at night, we stack them on the flatbed trailer, and at the end of the night, when we get them all stacked up there, we take and we drape nets over them, and the nets drape down over the colonies, all down the sides. We bungee the nets on the bottom so the flaps don't open up. Put boards over them, strap them down good and tight, and it's really a hard job as far as like the trucker's job for trucking them to California. It's 2,500 miles. So for a single truck driver, that's not a team drivers. There are some in the industry that haul bees, but you would probably only encounter maybe 5% of the people that haul bees are team drivers. So typically you have a single driver. They have 2,500 miles to California. It takes about 3 days, and they have to stay moving pretty much all day. So they can't stop for fuel, bathroom, anything all day long. Only at nighttime can they stop because they're not in an enclosed trailer. They're on a flatbed semi-trailer with nets over them. I mean, if it's like, a dire emergency, yeah, they can stop in the daytime. But every second they're stopped, I'm losing bees because there's bees that are trying to come outside the hive and fly. So, I mean, yeah, what happens. I mean, you can have flat tire, you can have engine trouble, you could have an emergency where you have to stop and go to the bathroom. Those things happen, but pretty much they need to be moving the whole time. So it takes them 3 days to get there, and when they get to California at the border, going into California, they have agricultural inspection stations. So for them to go into the state of California, inspector at the agricultural inspection station is going to come out wearing a bee suit, and they're going to inspect your load to make sure you're free of fire ants and other pests that the state of California claims they do not have inside their state. So it's all a little subjective to which inspector you get and such, but if they find a fire ant, certain spiders, certain grubs on those boxes or anything, they can reject your bees. So, imagine you've done all this work for weeks and you've made it 2,000 out of 2,500 miles, and then they say, oh, you can't come into our state. So at that point, you have to pay a washing company to unload your semi in what they consider a quarantined bee yard out in the desert. And then the inspectors have to come back. They come back daily, and if that load's been washed, they'll inspect it. And if they've determined that those insects or pests are no longer on that equipment, then they will basically allow you to enter the state. So 2024 was my first year ever having a load rejected. So last year I had to pay ridiculous money to have it offloaded and washed all over what potentially was just one fire ant.
Wow.
And they claimed I was going to get pictures of it, but I never did.
So was it actually there?
I'll say this. Several years ago, there was rumor that they were getting kickbacks from the washing companies to reject loads. And they were getting cash under the table to send them business. So I'll just put it that way. It sure seems like it fits the bill.
Yeah.
So how much of the business is honey and how much is dealing with bees?
I would say it's like 30 to 35% pollination, 30 to 35% selling bees, and then like 25% of honey, if that. So pollination and bee sales. I would say bee sales is probably top pollination the past year or two, to where I've done more in bee sales than I've done in pollination.
Where are most bees located in America? Is the South a big place for them, or is it just spread everywhere?
I would say the largest states for beekeeping are Florida, Texas, California, and then it would pivot toward the northern states like North and South Dakota, Montana, maybe Idaho. I think Washington State's pretty big. Um, the southern states like Florida, Texas, California, they're decent honey producing states. They also have decent in-state pollination available, and they have pretty good climates. The northern states that are so big is because traditionally that's where I would say the majority of the honey's produced. Your North and South Dakota, your Montana, it's crazy the honey that's produced up there. Michigan's a big state as well.
Is that just based off of I guess, the plants and stuff they have that they can feed off of, or how does that?
Yeah, basically they have a lot of prairies and cropland of like canola, clover, things like that just produce insane amount of honey. Around here we have pretty diverse land. You got pines, you got hardlands, you got creeks, you got some row cropping going on. There's a little bit of everything, but not a lot of one thing. And that's kind of why honey around here is not like a major producer as it is in other places.
What are some of your strategies to keep the business sustainable long term?
So my outlook on it is diversify as much as I can. So I do a lot of bee sales and a good amount of pollination. That's where the majority of my income comes from. So as much as I can, I'm diversifying who my customer base is, times of the year that I'm able to offer them products, and also the risk that I'm putting on my bees. So if I have all my bees doing one thing at one time, and if something bad goes wrong, it affects my whole operation. Whereas opposed if 25% of my bees are doing one thing, 25% are doing another, and 50% are doing another, then all my eggs are not in one basket. So I do a lot of pollination, but I do it in different places, different times of the year, and on different crops. Diversity is, I think, key to staying on top of a business, staying profitable, and minimizing your risk.
So you're talking about the crops. What are some different crops around here that you use for pollination?
So around here, I pollinate blueberries, watermelon, cantaloupe, squash, cucumber, zucchini. I think that's it.
Do you put any on cotton?
So yeah, I do put bees on cotton as well. Yes. The only thing about cotton is uh, I'm not able to charge for it. So technically, I'm doing pollination, but it's not a vital enough role to cotton because cotton is self-pollinating that farmers are not going to pay.
Yeah.
But there is research out there that it is beneficial to the cotton to have bees present on it because of the extra pollination they provide to the cotton.
So how does this benefit farmers having your bees on their property, on their crops?
So for the produce aspect of it, it's pretty essential. The amount of acreage they're planting at one time, there's not enough, local pollinators to adequately pollinate the amount of acres they have coming into bloom at one time. So at that point, my bees are pretty much essential for them to get good fruit set and good hardy fruit to form and develop. So without that, they would be spending all this amount of money per acre and missing the most important aspect of it, of having to be there to do the job of pollination. For cotton, those farmers are benefiting, a little bit, but really at that point of the year, they're probably benefiting the beekeeper more than the beekeeper's benefiting them, because there's not much else for our bees to go and forage on for that time of the year. So it provides a good food and pollen source for our honeybees.
What is your favorite and least favorite part of owning your own business, being your own boss?
I would say my favorite part of it is just the drive to stay on top of it, the challenges that it brings. You know, it's pretty much every day you don't know what you're walking into. You have plans to do X, Y, and Z, but before you can get to Y, X breaks down, or weather, all the different variables that go into doing what we do, and you never know what is going to be thrown your way. I don't like waking up every day, eating the same piece of bread, drinking the same drink, eating the same thing for lunch, going the same path to work every day. That's boring.
Yeah.
That is definitely not what I do every day. So I do like that aspect of it. One of the hardest parts about it is it never ends. Like, you want to be off and you want to mentally, not think about it, but it's hard to. Like, the phone never stops ringing. The bees never stop working. It's hard to step away from it and clear your mind to be off, or enjoy your family vacation or something like that. Like, it just never ends.
How do you balance the family time and business time?
So whenever I was working a full-time job and getting started with the bees and growing it, it was hard, because I was pretty much having to use every second away from the office to grow the bee business. So that involved like working weekends, holidays, vacation time as much as I could. Now I don't work Sundays. Like, it's very rare if I work Sundays. I try not to work any Saturdays outside of the springtime. Springtime, I'm making a lot of deliveries and stuff, so I pretty much have to work a lot of Saturdays. But outside of that, trying to devote Saturdays and Sundays to the family as much as I can. And then, there are times of the year where we can take off and go and do this and go and do that. And during the week, I try not to be completely absent from the house. I try and do as much with the kids, as I can. There are, of course, a lot of days I had to work late, or days where I won't even see the kids, like today. I've got to move bees tonight, so as soon as we're done with this podcast, I'm hitting the road and I'm gone. And, I won't see my kids today because I'll be gone. It's hard, but you just kind of have to realize that there's seasons to things. And, it's hard for me to be away from them, but at the same time, like, I hope that they realize I'm not away from them because I want to be. I'm away from them because this is my career. This is what I do. And I'm not doing it just for myself. I'm doing it for them too.
Mm-hmm.
How has your faith played a role in your life and work and family?
I'd say if you don't have faith, you don't have anything. I mean, I don't see how people can go through life and not believe in God. Just with the doors that have opened and doors that have closed, and how I've ended up where I'm at, like, there's no convincing me there's not a God. And when things get hard, it seems like he's always on time, and he always knows what's best for us. And, as long as we put him first, then everything else will fall into place. Falling into place, though, is not always how we want things to fall into place. We have to remember that. He's always in control. And it's really humbling to see where he takes you and how he protects you from things and people he puts into your path and the lessons you learn. You know, it's all through him and by him for us.
Yeah.
What would you say has been the most rewarding part of your journey so far?
I would say probably being able to quit my job and be in business for myself. That was pretty rewarding. You know, growing up, I always wanted to, you know, work in agriculture and would have loved to have my own operation, but I never thought that would be possible. And then, you know, here it is. You know, who would have ever thought honeybees is what I was doing? I mean, if you told me in high school that I was going to be a beekeeper the rest of my life, I was like, you're an idiot. There's no way. And, you know, here I am.
Well,
It's crazy.
So you recently won an award, didn't you?
Yeah, so I recently got Geneva County Young Farmer of the Year. So that was mind blowing. I had no idea I was even up for the award or anything. Got a phone call, hey, you're Geneva County Young Farmer of the Year. I was like, wow. So yeah, it's pretty rewarding. It's not something I ever thought that, you know, even 5 years ago that something I'd be receiving, but it's good to be respected amongst your peers, and you know, I guess I don't know if there just weren't many names in the hat or what, but yeah, pretty humbling to receive that.
do you know what's the most times you've been stung at one?
Probably hundreds. Yeah.
Do you grow numb to it, or does it still feel the same?
No, it still hurts. It just, like, I would say your body just doesn't respond to it as bad as it did to start with. So first time I was keeping bees, like first hive I was going through, I ended up getting stung on top of the head. So I go to sleep and I wake up the next morning, my eyes swollen shut. Well, that's because the venom moved under my skin into my eye socket and it swelled it shut. So, you know, your face swells up. That's probably one of the worst places to swell. Like if I got stung now, depending on where on the face, like it might swell, it might not. But to start with, you could guarantee it was going to swell really bad. But now, like if I get stung on the arm, the finger, anywhere else, like there's pretty much no swelling that's going to go on. The pain's still there. I mean, it still hurts. I mean, it's, you know, still a sting, but I would say the body just doesn't respond to it as it did the first probably year or so.
I remember when Ethan was shooting the video stuff for you out there when y'all were getting ready to transport them.
Yeah.
I didn't know you were supposed to duct tape your legs up at the bottom at your boot. And at one point, one of the pallets had fell off the skid steer, and they just went crazy. And I guess they were on the
everywhere.
ground and crawling around. And I'd walked away from it, but eventually I had felt something crawl up my leg. I was like, oh my gosh. And then eventually it kept climbing up, and I was like, it's probably going to sting me at some point. And then it got all the way up to my neck and stung me. I had I guess 4 of them that stung me on my neck.
Yeah.
I was like, ugh.
So if they sting you in one place, it leaves a scent. And that's where the other ones try and go to sting you.
Really?
Because they smell that scent. So like if say I'm not wearing gloves and I get stung on the hand and I keep working, I make another one mad, chances are the next one's going to sting me close to the same area. So I've had, sometimes when I move bees on the skid steer, I won't wear a bee suit. Like I'll wear just normal pants, and they can sting through it. So like when I'm riding the skid steer, the pants are tight on the top of my legs, so like on my knees and such. So sometimes they'll sting me, and like where one stings me throughout the night, like I'll get 20 more stings. So when I finally go in and get a shower for the night, like there'll be a spot maybe the size of a baseball on my knee or leg or thigh or somewhere, and it'll just have like 20 little red dots where they've stung me at.
Just all around that one spot.
Yeah.
I've had them sting me through my gloves when working with you.
Yeah.
Still hurts.
It still hurts. Yeah.
So you recently had the opportunity to rent out your bees and bee equipment to be in a movie with Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
So it's just crazy how small the bee industry is. Like, coast to coast and even within a state, like it's a pretty small world as far as like people that are a part of beekeeping. So there's a place that I buy some bee equipment with and do some business with, and he got hit up by people that were doing the filming for the movie, and the people that were in charge of finding props and equipment and things like that. And he got hooked up with them, and he called me. He's like, "Hey, you want to rent some bees and some equipment and be a part of this?" And I was like, "What?" I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "Well, yeah. I mean, it's a pretty cool opportunity. Never in a million years would have thought that I would be able to supply bees to be in a movie, and then not only a movie, but a movie that's got a major actor in it, like Matthew McConaughey, and being filmed right here in the state of Alabama. I mean, it's pretty incredible. So I was all game for it.
Did your perspective on movie sets change after you were involved with that?
Yeah, I would say I'm pretty illiterate as far as it comes to like filming and how movies are done and stuff. So I mean, y'all kind of have a little bit of filming background, doing videography and stuff. You know about cameras and probably know a little bit about how movies are made, but I had no idea. So I'm just a beekeeper. Like, you need some bees, I can deliver them. But it's crazy how, like, it's a job. Like, for us, we think of a movie like, oh, that's cool. Or, you find out someone's in a movie and it's like, oh, you're in a movie, that's cool, this and that. But you don't realize, like, what a job it is. So I was able to be on set for a couple days, and to me, just absolutely mind blowing to be there and see what all goes into producing a movie. I mean, you got film guys, you got makeup crews, you got people that are over, the wardrobes and stuff, people that are all audio people, microphones. You got people that are there just to make sure there's light in the right places.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got us bee guys on set. And then not only us, but you got little things like you got a snake wrangler on set. I'm like, why is there a snake wrangler? But then
How'd
you
you get into
think,
this?
every film you ever see with animals in movies, at the end they say that this movie was filmed without harming of any animals. Well, that's why there's like a snake catcher on set. So if there's any
Oh.
animals on set, you can't harm them in any way. So there was literally a snake wrangler on set that goes around, and we're filming in this large cattle pasture. I mean, there's like 5 or 6 different places within that property that we were filming. So we may be at apiary number 1, but in 30 minutes we're going to apiary number 2. So this guy just walks around and makes sure there's no snakes in the area, because I mean, they try and make it look as natural as possible.
Yeah.
We're really just in the middle of a cow field.
Mm-hmm.
So he walks around and makes sure there's no snakes, and if there is, he captures it and he just takes it 300 yards away in the woods or something, and he has to live release it and everything. And he actually caught snakes while we were there. So I was there on set for 2 days. So he did catch some type of black snake. I got a video of a friend holding it, but yeah. So it's crazy how like every little thing is accounted for, and it's moving fast. And like as far as like directors go, you got like the lead director that's like head honcho. He's in charge. But then up under him you got like assistant director 1, assistant director 2, assistant director 3, and it's literally a hierarchy. Like if the director wants something done, he tells the guy under him. And then it's that guy's job to tell the people under him to make sure this job's done. And it flows that way. Like, you don't talk to the lead director. If you got something to say, you got to start at the bottom of the chain and hope by the time it gets up to him that he got the full story of what you wanted to tell him. And then, like, you know, the actors on set. So, you know, like, you know, McConaughey and the other people on set, like, you know, it's not every day that you get to be on set, you know, for me as a beekeeper with someone like that. You know, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity, if that. And it's like, you know, you want to go up and, you know, meet them and all this kind of stuff. But at the same time, like, when they come up to film, they're locked in. Like, that's their job. They're there for a job. And it's not that they're being rude or anything. It's just that they've got to make sure the time that they're there, they're getting exactly what that director wants to capture. So their state of mind is in the role that they're playing for that movie. So every second that they're there is occupied with getting their mind work, making sure they're in character, and they're doing what they need to do to film that shot or scene or whatever it is that they're wanting to capture for that time. And for me, like, I think that, you know, I kind of thought that it's like, oh, well, you know what to say, but you just get up there and, you know, they say cut and you go. But it's definitely not how it was.
How did other people on set react to the bees?
There were some that were kind of nervous about it, but overall, I mean, we had like suits and veils for them to wear, you know, if they were scared of it, this and that, didn't want to be stung. But overall, I thought the beekeeping crew did a fantastic job of getting what they wanted done with the bees for each scene, but at the same time, minimizing the exposure to the cast and the crew and the people on set to be around live bees. I mean, there were only a few bee stings the whole entire time that live bees were used in the filming aspects of it. So there were some that to start with, they were kind of, you know, standoffish and skittish and this and that, but then they realized, like, oh, this is not a big deal as, you know, we thought. So I think everybody handled it pretty well.
If you can talk about it, what all did you have to do on that set?
So one thing that, you know, blows my mind as far as the filming aspect goes is it's kind of a little bit like beekeeping. So, like, if you asked me what I was doing for the next week, like, I could tell you kind of what I was going to do each day. But as far as, like, play by play and second by second, it's ever changing. So the filming aspect was also the same way. So, like, they could tell you on this day they want to film these scenes. But based on how long it takes them to do each scene is kind of contingent on what's going to be done the next day. So if they want to film with live bees tomorrow in this particular scene, then we have to go and make sure there's bees in that apiary that they want to film, and they're in the box that they want to shoot out of, this and that. So we had to take those bees and transfer them on site to that location. And then that way, the next day, they're there for them to shoot. But there's little things that, like, you know, when you don't get to talk to the director and you got to talk to the guy, you know, a couple lines down the list from him, and like, oh, we want to do this. So we go and do that. But then the next day, they're like, oh, well, why are these bees flying around here? Well, it's because we moved them there yesterday and we moved them out last night. Those bees are confused. They think this is still their home. Mm-hmm. So if we go back to shoot in that apiary the next day and we don't even need live bees to film, well, there's still going to be a few bees flying around because those bees think that that's still their home. So they're trying to fly back home, but it's not their home anymore. So that's pretty much what we did, was just make sure they had live bees where they wanted live bees at for each set.
That is a pretty cool experience. Like you were saying, it's once in a lifetime.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be more, but
yeah,
looking at it from the
Hey, if anyone's listening that has got anything to do with filming, if you need bees, I would say everyone that was involved with this did a fantastic job. I mean, if Hollywood needs like a dedicated like bee
Bee-
crew, I
Y'all
think
are-
all of us did a fantastic job. And I only played a small role in it. I mean, my friend Adam Hickman, that was kind of like the head bee guy, I think he did a fantastic job, like coordinating it and doing what they, getting what they needed done efficiently. I think he did a great job, like coordinating it all.
For somebody who's unsure about what they want to do with their career, maybe they're in high school or even in college, what would you have to say to them?
I would tell them just to try and get involved with what they think they're interested in, and when they get involved in it, try and be a part of as much as they can be. My first job I landed was because I went to a career fair at the University of Florida. I was a student there and went to a career fair and handed USDA booth my application. That's how I ended up getting that job, which led into other things. But I thought I wanted to work, selling agrochemicals and things like that, and ended up, going a completely different route. But it's not always what you know, but who you know. So being in contact with as many people as you can, whether it be clubs, networking events, working for someone, even if it's a job you don't want to work in forever, you still meet people and you're still exposed to other areas of industry within that job. So meet as many people as you can and try and always leave a good reputation for yourself. It's going to follow you.
What does success mean to you now compared to when you were younger?
So success now, I would say, well, I'll start when I was younger. I would say when I was younger, I figured, it was always being married, having a big house, and making a lot of money, and, fishing every weekend. Success now is, yeah, those things are nice. Having a big house, having money, and, having nice things is nice. But I would say being able to, have whether it be a business or a job where you comfortably can provide for your family, be present with your family, and being able to instill good morals and good examples for your children. I think that's like the ultimate success, not really the materialistic things. Like those things are fine, and yeah, I have a nice boat and things like that. I don't get to fish as much as I want to, but I would think leading a good example for your kids, showing them that you can be successful, have your own business or work a job somewhere, and be present in your faith. Be involved with your church, things like that. Those are all things that I kind of contribute to being successful.
That's good answers.
What's the best way for people to support local bee companies or honey companies, things like that?
Buy local honey, even if it's not mine. Wherever you're at, just buy. And if you can buy directly from a beekeeper, buy directly from them. But if you're going to go to a grocery store shelf and buy honey, just make sure it's from a local mom and pop beekeeper. Uh, you don't want that U.S. grade A cheapest stuff on the shelf. I mean, you might as well just go to the syrup aisle and buy
true.
syrup because it's not real honey and it's probably not going to taste good. So if you think you don't like honey, just find a local beekeeper and try their honey. It may change your mind on what you think you like and what you don't. And all dark honey doesn't taste the same as other dark honeys. All light honey doesn't taste the same as other light honeys. I promise you, there's a honey out there for everyone to like. They're not all the same.
What's your favorite kind of honey?
I would say probably sourwood honey.
Sour wood.
It's produced in the Appalachian Mountains. It's a plant that grows in high elevation in the mountains. It's got a fantastic taste. Tupelo honey's great. Gallberry honey's great. Orange blossom honey's great. But I would say sourwood takes the cake.
So, like you have here, y'all do like the hot honey and different things like that too. So, what other products do y'all offer?
So we do a hot honey. It's jalapeno hot honey. We do a wildflower, local raw honey. We also do Tupelo honey, and we have a creamed honey, an original creamed honey, a cinnamon creamed honey, a chocolate creamed honey, and we're working on blueberry, strawberry, peach, lemon. I think that's it. But we're working on developing a larger product line and even rebranding our whole honey product line.
What's your favorite of your products that you have right now?
I would say either the jalapeno hot honey. It's great on pretty much anything.
It was really
Pizza, ribs,
good. Chicken.
fried chicken.
Yeah.
Your mom makes some baked beans one time with it, and it was so good.
Yeah, you put it in baked beans. And I've not tried it yet, but I'm fixing to. But I've heard people putting this on vanilla ice cream that say it's like the best thing ever.
Wow.
I don't know how you get jalapeno hot honey mixed with vanilla ice cream. I don't know who was the first one to try it, but I keep hearing it from multiple sources, so I'm gonna have to go buy some vanilla ice cream and try it. But that's my favorite, and also the cinnamon creamed honey.
Those are good.
Mm-hmm.
So we label it as a whipped honey, but a whipped honey and a creamed honey is basically the same thing. We just didn't call it creamed honey because of people who have issues with dairy can be turned off to the creamed aspect of it just from a marketing standpoint, because when they hear cream, they think it's got a dairy additive. Yeah. But it's nothing other than just honey and cinnamon. That's the only additive in it is cinnamon. It's just a process we put the honey through to get it in what you would call a creamed state or a whipped state. That's the only difference in it. But those two are my favorite products that we offer right now. But the strawberry and blueberry,
I can't wait to try those.
Whipped honey we've made are pretty good.
When you think you'll be having those out?
2025, we will be done with rebranding our honey line. So it'll be in 2025. But I have samples, and I need guinea pigs to give me feedback on it.
Hey, I'll take it. I'll take some.
You can have some within a week.
If someone wanted to buy honey or bees from you, how can they find you?
Facebook page at Choctaw Bee Company. Choctaw is short for the Choctawhatchee River. So if you're familiar with Choctawhatchee River, you probably know how to spell it. So that's Choctaw Bee Company on Facebook. Just message us, and we can be in contact with you to get you what you want. Right now, we pretty much just do porch pickup on the honey, and bees, they would pick up or we deliver.
All right, last one. What's one fun fact about bees that you want everybody to know?
Bees have hair on their eyes, on their eyeballs. There you go.
That's crazy.
You know a reason for that?
I do not. Maybe to keep the pollen out of their eyes.
Yeah.
Maybe. Well, Tyler, thank you for coming on the podcast. This is a great episode. Glad you could be a part of it.
Yeah, appreciate you guys having me on, and maybe the folks listening learned something about honeybees and got a perspective on what I do and my business. Sure. Appreciate it.
Go buy some honey from Choctaw Bee Company.
Thank you.